Let's say you're 60 years old, you want to retire, you've saved $1.4 million in your retirement accounts, and you want to know if you have enough. Let's create a very simple plan together in the retirement budget calculator so that you can look to see if you have saved enough, number one, and number two, we'll play with the numbers a little bit to see how much you can spend and not run out of money in retirement. So if you're ready, let's dive in. Okay, so here we are. We've got John and Nancy. He was born in 1962. She was born in 1962. They're both 59 years old. And you will notice that we are planning to have them retire December 31st of 2022. So by the end of this year, they'll be 60 years old. Now, one of the things that we made an adjustment to in this particular example is we're saying that he's going to live to age 89. She's going to live to age 92. Okay, now in terms of assets and liabilities, they've done a good job saving. He has $1 million saved in his 401k. She has $400,000 saved. She converted all of her IRA money to a Roth, so she has $400,000. It's all in the Roth. You'll notice the withdrawal order here. We're going to assume that we tap into his 401k first and her Roth account second. And then we'll apply a custom rate of return. So we'll say his money grows at 4% per year, her money grows at 5% per year. They also have a house that's valued at $500,000. They do have a little bit of a mortgage still outstanding. So $100,000 that's not going to be paid off until 2024. Remember, we're assuming that they're going to retire December 31st of 2022. So that means they're going to have a mortgage for a couple of years, the first couple of years of retirement. Now, the next big number that we need to know in this scenario is their income. Right now, he has wages of $7,000 per month, but that's only going to last until December of 2022. And then he's going to postpone taking his Social Security. He's estimating it's going to be about $3,000 per month at age 70. So there's going to be a 10-year gap there where he doesn't have any Social Security. But she is going to start her Social Security when she turns 62. So starting in April of 2024, she's going to turn that Social Security on. And in both cases, we'll assume their Social Security increases at 2% per year. Now, they are going to withhold a little bit for taxes. So $500 per month is going to go into their tax account. And we made their budget really simple. Now, of course, we want you to be as detailed as you can regarding your spending because that's what's going to give you the most confidence. But in this really simple scenario, we said their expenses are $5,000 per month, except for that mortgage. They've got $1,000 a month going out on the mortgage, and that is going out on auto pay. You'll notice we have the mortgage payment ending in December of 2024. So when that gets paid off, then their expenses will only be $5,000 per month. And you'll see how this all works together here in just a minute as we're trying to model whether or not they've saved enough. Of course, one of the things that we're doing in the retirement budget calculator is estimating your taxes each year. And what we want to do now is go over to the future view to try to answer this question. So a couple of things we're assuming right now. Number one, that their money in their retirement accounts is just growing at 3% per year. And we're ignoring that custom rate of return that we had input on their assets. We can select that if we want to, but for now we're just going to assume their money's growing at 3% per year. We're going to look at all of their expenses, and then anytime there's a surplus, we're going to assume the surplus gets spent, that they're not saving anything additional. So here they are, 60 years old. They have good income this year, all year. We're estimating their taxes to have an effective tax rate of about 7.81%. You can see in this first year, because he's working all year long, their net income is $77,000. Their expenses are $72,000. So that gives them a surplus of $5,439. But in this example, we're going to assume that that is not being saved. It's just that surplus is being spent. So you can see they have $1.4 million, and that money's growing at 3% per year. Now, if you click on a row, you can see more detail. So you can see his 401k and her Roth IRA each growing at 3% per year. Next year, you'll notice their income drops to zero because her Social Security hasn't started yet and he's retired, so he has no more income. We're still estimating taxes because remember, in year 2, the first year of retirement, they need to take $79,864 out of their of his 401k. That's how we're going to assume that they're coming up with the money to supplement their cash flow needs. Their expenses are $73,800. And of that $73,800, they're going to have an additional $6,064 due in taxes. So that's how we end up with a withdrawal of $79,864. And you'll notice all of that withdrawal is coming out of his 401k. So we take the withdrawal and then we multiply it by 3%. And at the end of the year, he has $978,640 remaining. Now, you'll notice here in 2025, remember the mortgage is getting paid off in 2024, December of 2024. So in 2025, their budget drops down to just $65,563 when adjusted for inflation, because remember, we're increasing their expenses every year by 3% inflation in this particular scenario. So $65,000, $67,000, $69,000, and these are the withdrawals that are needed. You'll notice this is when Social Security kicks in for her. It started at age 62. And then you'll notice when he turns 70, they're going to get a big bump, and his Social Security is going to kick in. So combined, they're going to have $57,000 of Social Security income at that point, which means their portfolio withdrawals will be much less, only $24,948. And then the other thing that we're taking into consideration here that the calculator is automatically doing is calculating his required minimum distribution. So when you turn age 72, you have to begin taking money out of your IRAs and 401ks. So in his example, he's going to have to take $25,418 out, but that RMD isn't going to be enough to cover the shortfall. So they're going to have to take an additional $2,883 out of the 401k to cover all of their expenses that year. So you can see what happens. We run the numbers down and we get all the way to his life expectancy at age 90. The blue line represents his life expectancy. The pink line represents her life expectancy. And you can see, based on some very conservative assumptions, 3% inflation, 3% return on their money, they get all the way out to age 92, and they still have resources remaining in their accounts. So the next thing we want to do is we want to see how do they diversify this money using a bucket strategy. Well, when they first retire, the idea with a bucket strategy is to have some money that's low risk. So the first 3 years of spending is going to be low risk. And then the more time they have, the more risk they can afford to take. So that's how they could consider diversifying their money as they begin to enter into retirement. The other thing they want to do, though, they're curious, just how much money can they spend without potentially running out of money in retirement? So they come back over here to the budget tab, they go to their expenses, and they say, okay, this is based on if we're spending $5,000 per month, and our expenses for inflation are growing at 3% per year, and our money is growing at 3% per year. So what if we increase this to $6,000 per month to start, and then we increase their inflation factor by 3% per year? So you can see we go back over to the future now, and everything remains the same, except we're starting with that higher spending amount. And in this scenario, we get them down. This yellow line represents the line they deplete their resources down to zero. So you can see if they start out spending $6,000 per month, they get at age 90, he has $79,000 left. They deplete all of the resources down to zero, and the wife dies at 92, and basically there are no more liquid investable assets remaining. And they say, well, that's pretty good, but what if we want to spend even more? So they come back over to the budget data tab, and they say, you know, let's increase this to $7,000 per month and then see what happens. And we come back over to the future view, and you can see that's going to put even more pressure. So now they've depleted all of their resources at age 83, and their life expectancy is 90 and 92. So in that case, they've run out of money much earlier than what they had planned. Now, let's say that they want to spend more in the early years, and then they want to drop the budget down. So in that example, what we would do is we say, okay, we're going to spend $7,000 a month for the first 10 years. So we'll say that that ends in December of 2032. December of 2032 is how long they will spend $7,000. And then we'll say all expenses starting in 2032 or January of 2033 will drop back down to $5,000 per month. So in those go-go years, they're going to spend more, and then in the slow-go years, they'll spend less. So we'll say that's going to start in January of 2033. And there will be no end to it. So up here now we have $7,000 a month that they're going to be spending from January of 2022 until December of 2032. And then in January of 2033, they're going to drop their budget down to just $5,000 per month, and that's going to continue through the rest of their life. So let's look at that scenario now to see how that would work out for them. Again, this is assuming that their money's only growing at 3% per year. So you can see 2032, they're spending more these early years of retirement. We get out to 2033, and then we drop the budget down to just $60,000 a year is all they need, and then adjust that for inflation each year. And you can see that now we run the numbers and we get them all the way down to age, well, beyond life expectancy, and they still have plenty of money there. What if we don't drop it that far down? What if we say on the budget we take that $5,000 and we say, what if they want to spend $6,000 per month? How would that work? Come back over here and we say, well, even that. So we have the higher spending initially, the lower spending starting after 10 years of retirement, and we're able to get them all the way down to age 92, and they have not depleted their portfolio down to zero. So as you can see, you've got a lot of ways that you can use the retirement budget calculator to run different scenarios, to create different models. Now remember, this is assuming that simple growth rate. Over on the Assets and Liabilities tab, we had said, what if his 401k grows at 4% per year, hers grows at 5% per year? Well, over here on the Future View, we can change this to allow custom rates of return. So instead of assuming 3% now we're assuming that 4% and 5% growth rate. You can see that right here. And under that scenario, we get them all the way to a place where at age 92 they have 1.9 million. But we all know that it's unlikely that they're going to just have a constant rate of return every year. So what if we want to model what a 60% stock, 40% bond portfolio would have looked like, and we use a bad timing sequence of returns, and we see how long their money would last under that kind of scenario using a bad timing sequence of returns. And you can see, wow, they end up with a lot of money in that scenario. What if we go even more conservatively, we say 50%, and assume a bad timing sequence of returns? And yet again, using history as our model, they end up with a lot of money. What if we assume that they have a simple growth rate, but they only average 1% per year? How do they do under that scenario? And you can see they do pretty good, but their resources are depleted at age 94 beyond life expectancy. So there's a lot of different ways you can use the retirement budget calculator to really start to dial in your retirement spending plan. Okay, thanks so much. I hope you found this helpful.